What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Project Reboot kitchen. Today, I'm going to be behind the camera as I relinquish control of the kitchen to my mom as we face off and compare our Kare Kare recipes. Now, in a previous episode, I made a westernized version of this Filipino stew with a peanut butter-based broth using only ingredients you could find at your local Whole Foods. Now, my mom told me that my version was looking a little pale because it was made in America, and so we went down to our local Asian market and picked up all of the ingredients we needed to do this thing right. For this recipe, we're going to start off by cooking our meat and making a delicious broth. For the meat, my mom has chosen to go with some chuck steak and some oxtail, which was a great choice because the gelatin from all that connective tissue will help to thicken the stew and give it a great mouthfeel. Now, to season the broth, we'll need some onion, some garlic, a couple of bay leaves, some salt. We've got pink Himalayan sea salt here, and some whole peppercorns. Now later on, we're gonna need a couple more ingredients to add to the broth to finish things off. Now tradition calls for peanut butter, but my mom is humoring my keto request and using almond butter here. And then she's got two secret ingredients that will make her recipe a lot more legit than mine. Here we've got shrimp paste. It's as strong in flavor as it is in color. It's garlicky, salty, and pungent, and it'll make that final product so much more complex and interesting. And finally, we've got annatto powder. Now, it won't do much in terms of flavor, but it will solve the paleness issue my mom had with my recipe. Then finally, we've got the veg. We'll need some long beans and some bok choy to give the stew some texture and break up all that richness. Okay, first up, it's time to prep the ingredients. We're gonna start by gently peeling a few cloves of garlic. Or if you're my mom, you apparently go out into the yard, grab the flattest rock you can find, and pound the crap out of your garlic to free it from its papery prison. Once you're done abusing your garlic, set it aside for a brief reprieve before we send it to its boiling demise in the Instant Pot. Now we're gonna chop some onion, and set that aside to keep the garlic company until we're ready to make the broth. Now it's time to prep the meat. We'll start by cutting the chuck roast into fairly large cubes. Then we'll fill a bowl with water and some baking soda to clean and soften the meat. Once the baking soda dissolves, we'll start putting the meat in the bowl and let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. Now after the time's up, we'll go ahead and dump that water out and give all of that beefy goodness a good rinse. Now since my mom is a stickler for cleanliness, we're going to do a second round of cleaning by placing our washed meat in a stock pot and letting it come to a boil. Next, it's time to watch in horror as all of the impurities from the beef come bubbling vigorously to the surface. Go ahead and start skimming that disgustingness off the top of the water continuously for about 10 to 15 minutes, or until the top of the water stays pretty much consistently clear. Then it's time to dump out that disgusting bath water and give the meat a final rinse. Then, straight into the Instant Pot it goes. Now we'll top off the Instant Pot with some water, and we'll dump in the aromatics starting with the onions and then the garlic. Throw the bay leaves in there, then the salt and the peppercorns. Then we'll lock everything up in the Instant Pot and set our timer for 1 hour. After an hour, our patience is rewarded by an amazing aroma and some pretty rich looking broth. We'll scoop out the aromatics first. Then it's time to scoop out the meat. Don't forget to exercise chef's privilege and taste a little before anybody else gets to. Next, we'll pour the broth into a large bowl through a strainer to catch all the little bits of stuff that was left behind. Now it's time to prepare the rest of the ingredients and turn this stock into a stew. First, we'll heat up a frying pan and hit it with a little bit of avocado oil, making sure to evenly coat the bottom of the pan. Then we'll add some onions and the garlic and make the whole house smell like my childhood. Next up, we'll add the shrimp paste and give it a chance to get acquainted with the aromatics. Then we'll use a couple of ounces of broth to deglaze the bottom of the pan and capture every bit of that shrimpy, oniony flavor. We'll let that come to a nice simmer and then let the sauce reduce for a couple of minutes. While we're doing that, we're going to dump our meat into a stock pot and then top it with our reduced shrimp paste sauce. Then we'll top all of that off with the remaining broth. Next, we're going to mix our annatto powder into about a cup of water to make sure it doesn't clump, and then we'll add that to the stew to give it a deep, rich color. Now it's time for our signature ingredient, the almond butter. Next, we'll add some long beans for texture, and we'll cover the pot and bring everything to a boil. Once we've let all the flavors converse for a little bit, it's time to taste for seasoning. This was pretty perfect except for the thickness, so we decided to add a bit of xanthan gum, though you could use cornstarch as an alternative if you like. We'll mix it with some room temperature water before adding to the pot to ensure that it doesn't clump. Now just like me, my mom likes to add the bok choy at the very end to make sure it doesn't get mushy. And now there's nothing left to do but sit back and see what our impartial panel of taste testers have to say.
I'm ready to taste, and I actually have a special spoon for it. So here it goes. I mean, this has been a work of love. Oh my gosh, this is delicious. Awesome. Can I taste the whole bowl?
Yes.
Okay.
All for you.
So I gave you my Kare Kare recipe last night.
Yes.
And this is a joint collaboration with Mom and me.
Awesome.
So which Kare Kare do you prefer?
This one right here, by far.
In comparison to Kare Kare that you would have back home,
Yes.
how does this compare?
It's there. I mean, it actually does taste, almost the same. I couldn't have even told the difference.
Okay, you don't have to eat the whole spoon. Okay.
Oh.
What do you think?
What? I think he needs a second.
What can I say? Go crazy! Delicious. What type of meat was that?
That was oxtail.
The oxtail is fatty. The soup, like whatever the broth or whatever's around it, gives it a nice texture, so it like gets out a little bit of the richness and salt, and it's pretty good.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That is probably the best stew I've ever had. That's insanely good. That broth is so rich and flavorful. I feel like I could eat this entire bowl without any problem whatsoever.
Well, it looks like Mom has struck a pretty decisive victory here. If you like this video, go ahead and smash that like button. Don't forget to leave us a comment and tell us which version of Kare Kare you prefer, and if you want to see more keto-friendly recipes, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We post new recipes every week. Until next time, fam.
Ellie, do you like what you have here? What is this?
Kare Kare!
Kare Kare? Can you say I like Kare Kare?
I love Kare Kare.
Can you ask Mommy, do you like Kare Kare too?
I like Kare too.
Yes, I love Kare Kare.